Well, good morning. Let's get started now. I'd like to say welcome to everybody who has signed up for the webinar. For those of you here on the West Coast, good morning. For those on the East Coast, good afternoon. And for those of you who are attending from the UK, good evening. Very kind of you to spend a Friday evening with me. Not quite what I would expect from a Friday night, but without further ado, I want to move on. So again, if you are having any issues with hearing me, please let me know. So, lean sales for design firms. The aim of this workshop is to give you some tools to enable you to spend less time actually selling, but also to improve the quality of the clients you get. What we'll be covering in the workshop today, which should last around about an hour, maybe a little bit less, are the following. I want to introduce you to the idea behind the lean sales concept. The emphasis here is very much an introduction. I don't want to bog you down with all the mechanics. Then we want to move on to understanding how you can improve the quality of the leads that you get, because the quality of the leads obviously brings better clients. The better quality your leads, the best clients you can bring in. Understanding how to manage your sales pipeline. So that is, how many leads do I need to be bringing in? How many prospects should I be nurturing? And just as importantly, when should I be saying no to bad or subpar leads? And last step is how to add value within the sales process so that you can not only speed that sales process up, but you can improve the conversion rates. So you're actually bringing in more good quality leads with actually spending less time working on them. So that's the aim of today's workshop. For those of you that don't know me, and there are some people on the workshop who I'm very familiar with, I'm a business coach, notionally transformational in that I help owners of design firms grow their businesses, in some cases very dramatically in short spaces of time. And I'm lucky enough to work with clients both in North America and in Europe as well. Amongst my clients, I'm very pleased to say that I have multiple award winners. In fact, one of my clients just picked up their 4th Applied Arts Award in 5 years. They're a bit miffed they didn't make it 5 in a row. I've been in business for 29 years now. It's quite scary to think that I joined PricewaterhouseCoopers, the international accounting and consulting firm, back in 1986. And as well as having that experience in business, I also run a number of my own businesses. So I'm out there, or at the coalface, if you like, selling on a regular basis as well. So hopefully you will enjoy what I have to say today. Number of things that I want you to be able to take away from the workshop. The first one is an additional tool to your qualification process, and it's how to use some simple personality profile methodologies or tips to bring in better leads. And as importantly, it's how to say no to some of the bad leads that you might otherwise be tempted to take on board. Some of that is an understanding of when it's okay to say no, and that is not just from a personality standpoint, but also from a financial standpoint, cash flow standpoint, which is very important to look at as well. And I want to look at some simple formulas that we can use to set the lower number and the upper level, or the upper limit, to the number of prospects you should have in your sales pipeline. This will really help you save time and effort working with the right people rather than working with just anyone. And lastly, I want to look at ways in which we can add value during the sales process, which not only increases your conversion rates, but it also increases the speed with which your prospects come to making a decision. All of these are ways in which lean sales can be brought in to selling within the creative industry. So why is it important to be doing it now? One of the things that I say to my clients is that you should be working with ideal clients, and that means you have to be proactive. You can't just sit back and wait for the phone to ring, wait for that email to come in to say, hey, we're interested in working with you. You need to be actively selling. One of the things about that is that it frees up a significant amount of time within your business to manage your business more effectively, but also outside the business world to live life, to spend time with friends and family. So if you feel that you're spending way too much time feeding the beast, in other words, having created a firm and now you feel that you're spending way too much time selling and not enough time doing, this is a great opportunity. I understand that for many firms, especially in the economy today and the way that graphic design in particular feels as though it is under siege, there's a reluctance to say no to almost any client that walks through the door. But it's increasingly important that you qualify clients well so that you can get rid of the sub-ideal leads, the penny pinchers, those who would be better suited going to 99 Design, for example, or even Fiverr, for goodness sake. It's really important that you know how you can weed those people out and do it effectively. And finally, it's a great opportunity to reset your sales strategy for the final half of 2016. Generally, the summer is a little bit quieter for design firms, not always. And if it is a bit quiet, it's a great time to be a little bit introspective, to look at the processes and systems you have in your business so that when fall comes around and things start to get busier, you have a really good opportunity to implement lean sales and save time selling, bring in better clients, and have a fantastic second half to 2016. What will you need to actually do in the way of implementation? Well, it is going to require hard work, but I've yet to work with a design firm that isn't prepared to put in hard work. I think it's very much a nature of the industry. Want to emphasize that this is not an instant transformation. This is not one of those get rich quick systems that you see advertised frequently on Facebook and the like. This is a series of iterative changes that you make within the business, which bit by bit make significant improvements. An example would be within your sales process. If you can make 5% improvements to 5 steps in that sales process, that works out at a compound 27 to 28% improvement in your overall conversion rate for your sales. So it's very much iterative. It's not instant. But you have to be decisive. You can't enter into this half-heartedly. There are discussions that you have to have with prospective clients. That means once you go down that route, certainly with that client, you can A/B test if you want to, but I would recommend be decisive, implement it, it works. It will, for many of you, probably challenge your comfort zone. Businesses that are in a state of status quo are in a comfort zone, and people may be quite happy with that, but maybe thinking about a bit of a change. But if you want to make radical changes to your business, I talked about being transformational. If you want to double the size of your firm in 12 months, you are going to have to be pushed beyond your current comfort zone, and this to some extent will do that. And lastly, it requires persistence. Hard work done for a short period of time is fine. Hard work done over a prolonged period of time will reap significant results. So that's what it kind of takes to do this. And now I want to look at whether it's something that might be appropriate for you. So if you want or you need change, this is a good opportunity. It will break the cycle that you have with picking up average clients. I've worked with a client now for 20 months, and when we started, we looked at the best client that he had, and I said, well, what would it take to make that client average? And he sort of scratched his head and thought a bit and said, well, I'm not sure that we can. This is an exceptional client. Well, 20 months on, that best client now falls at the bottom of the second quartile. So in other words, they're very, very close to an average client. It is possible. It is doable. I should add that during the course of that, the company has seen its revenue grow nearly 8-fold in what is now 20 months. So you must be willing to say goodbye to some old clients. The clients at the bottom end of your portfolio, you have to be willing to lose those. You have to be proactive in sales. As I said a little bit earlier, you can't just kind of sit back and wait for it all to happen and not be afraid of hard work. But as I said, you're designers, you know about hard work. So on to lean, and just a very quick run through of what lean is and where it comes from as a methodology. It originates from the Toyota's manufacturing process. And if you think back to the 70s and 80s, the Japanese car manufacturers started to dominate production in the automotive world, and lean was a very strong force behind that for Toyota, who were the #1 manufacturer. The aim behind it is that you look at every step of a process and you determine whether it has value. If it doesn't add value, then it's waste. It's wasting time and it's wasting resources, and therefore you eliminate that step. It increases the speed with which things happen, and it also increases the quality of teamwork, overall leading to significantly better results. And lean requires this commitment to continuous improvement. It's not a one-time process. So you go back again and again with feedback loops, making changes as you go and make things better and better moving forward. So the thing with lean is it started out in manufacturing, and it has spread. Supply chain logistics, I'll just put my teeth back in there. Healthcare, engineering, and more recently software development have adopted lean processes to make themselves significantly more efficient. Lean sales has started to gain traction in the last 3 or 4 years, and it's really a very, very good fit with the design industry. Where you are selling effectively something intangible. The more that you can implement lean processes, and in particular we'll look at the adding value side further on, the more closely you can align yourself with potential clients, and the better it is to bring in good quality clients. I want to start with qualifying leads. Now, I'm going to take you through some basics here, so apologies if some of it is familiar to you. Number of acronyms out there for ways in which to qualify leads. The standard one used in most sales environments is BANT. So budget, can they afford it? Authority, is the person you're talking to authorized to sign off on this, or do you need to speak to somebody else? Do they actually need what you are selling, or are they just tire kickers? And does their time frame fit with your time frame? So that's a nice simple one, BANT. Faint is kind of the next level on. The different there really is the interest, and that is there an interest in working with you, and are you interested in working with them? A little bit more detailed. My favorite one within the creative industries is Scotsman, and Scotsman really is solution. Is the solution that your client needs, or your potential client needs, something that you are capable of delivering? Competition. This really allows you to step back and look at who else is in the field, who else may well be in the running for this. It's particularly pertinent for RFPs. If you know that there's an incumbent in place, is there any point in moving forward with an RFP? Because the competition is strong, it's already in place. Is your time better spent going and looking at other leads and other prospects? Originality. Is the solution that you can offer original? And that's really very much a design aesthetic. Is it something that you are going to be satisfied with? Is it going to keep you and your team challenged? Time frame, same as before. Size. This really is looking at the compatibility of size between the prospect and your firm. When you get a mismatch, and by that I generally, sort of rule of thumb, think If a new prospect is going to bring in more than 1/3 of your firm's revenue, then you have a mismatch. It goes from the situation where you are partners to the tail wagging the dog. They are very much in control. So be cautious. I generally recommend not to take on clients that are going to provide more than 25% of your current revenue. That doesn't mean you can't grow and that percentage will decrease, but you need to bear that in mind. Money, can they pay for it? Authority, as before, and need, they actually need it. So those are three relatively straightforward ways of qualifying leads. So far, nothing earth-shattering or particularly new. What I do want to introduce is some of the psychological factors that go into qualifying leads. And really this is to do with communication styles. And this is a simplification of the Myers-Briggs personality profiles. On the vertical axis, we have expansiveness. So at the top, they're very much people-orientated, I feel, and generally very poor time managers. Other end of the spectrum, much more reserved, very much task-orientated, and much more of an I think kind of person, and generally very good with time. On the horizontal axis, we have risk. So we have on one side risk averse, and the other much more dominant personalities that tend to be the risk takers. And when we look at the communication styles, Myers-Briggs breaks that down, as I say, the simplified Myers-Briggs, to the promoter style, and that's very much kind of like the entrepreneur. The facilitator style is much more middle management. The controller style tends to be much more CEO, and the analytical style tends to be much more sort of the CFO, the chief financial officer kind of individual. Also, the technocrats tend to be much more the analytical style as well. So how do we tie these in with qualifying potential leads? Well, when we look at what the basic needs are within each of these quadrants, the promoter is looking for personal recognition, the facilitator is looking for acceptance, controller is very much looking for results, and within the analytical style, they want to know they're making the right decision. There needs to be that security about the right decision. One of the things you can do within your proposals is once you've identified the style of the authority figure that you're speaking to, so the person who's authorized to sign off, you can very much tailor your proposals to meet these four basic requirements. But I want to take that one step further in terms of how can you use that when it comes to qualifying leads. So we have different characteristics, and I'm not going to stop and read through them all at the moment. This will, at the end of the workshop, I'll be making these slides available for you. One of the things to bear in mind is that when you are looking at your existing client base, look at the ones that you work with really well and look at those that you have troubles with, that you have less success with. Try and drop them into the particular quadrant. The reality is that very few people are a single communication style. They tend to blend and overlap. But look where you can best fit your good clients, the ones you've had the most success with, and look where you can fit your least successful clients, and just as importantly, those that you don't succeed on the proposal side with. I had a new client recently tell me that they'd gone into a number of presentations recently and had been rejected on 3 occasions by a promoter style individual. So from their perspective, they now know that dealing with the promoter style does not necessarily mean they're a good fit for their firm, and that enables them to qualify much earlier on in the process. So what you can do is use this slide to qualify your processes, qualify your prospects even. Where do your best clients fit? Where do your worst clients fall? And I'm not suggesting that they're these 2 quadrants in particular. Then think about what are the characteristics of the individuals that you're dealing with, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Their communication style, which is what we're talking about now in terms of the Myers-Briggs personality. But then think about things like timekeeping. Are they punctual? Do they keep you waiting? Are they slow at getting back to you? Those kind of things, add those in as characteristics. Their appearance, what does their office look like? Is it clean? Is it cluttered with family photos? Is it full of awards? All of these go in to help you identify the kind of individual, the kind of personality that you're dealing with. How do they dress? If they turn up in a shabby suit that's got food stains on it, and shoes are looking scruffy, chances are either they are not particularly concerned with their appearance, or possibly they're just the parents of young kids. But think about how they dress. What kind of car do they drive? What does it say about them? Individuals who tend to be scruffy, don't care about the appearance of their office, don't care about their personal appearance, tend not to care about design aesthetics. Does that mean they are a good fit or a bad fit for your firm? Look at this and see historically where you've been successful or where you haven't been. What kind of information do they want? Are they very analytical? Do they want to know, well, how many hours is going into this project? How much am I being charged per hour? What about the different rates within your firm? Someone who's looking for that detail of analytics very definitely falls down into the analytical style. Or are they much more broad brush? Well, tell me the results of this. What's going to happen? How successful is this going to make me? Much more likely to be in the promoter style, the controller style. So what is the financial outcome going to be of this? How much money is it going to make us? How much money is it going to save us? How much time is it going to save us? Much more the controller style. So have a think about that and use what you know about, as I say, the good, the bad, and the ugly from your client base to build up a psychographic profile. So not only demographic, but psychographic profile of the best fits for working with your firm. From this, you can also build up a series of red flags. And really what I look for here is if a prospect shows this personality trait, we know that historically they haven't been a good fit for us, or we don't like working with that kind of person. So build up a checklist. What are the red flags that you have? And then how many red flags need to be ticked before you disqualify them? So you actively stop wanting to work with them rather than them wanting to work with you, because you don't want to take on poor clients. For those of you who are familiar with the 80-20 rule, Pareto's principle, the idea is that 80% of your output comes from 20% of your input, and vice versa. And what you tend to find with subpar clients is they're the ones that take up 80% of your time, but actually only give you 20% of the results you want, generally profitability. So look at how you can remove more and more of those 80% that are not ideal through the qualification process. I want to move on to sales pipeline metrics and sales pipeline management. Again, apologies if I am dumbing this down a little bit to begin with, but don't worry, it will get more complex. Some simple math, and I'd say this is very simplified. So broadly speaking, income is the number of projects that you have multiplied by your average project value. The reality is that all firms have multiple revenue streams, and it doesn't always look this simplistic. But for this case, for this example, we will keep it nice and simple. So what's the number of projects? Well, that's the number of prospects that you have, and by prospects, I mean those that you have completed a proposal for, times your proposal conversion rate. So your PCR, that's how successful you are at converting those prospects into clients. But what's your number of prospects? Well, that's the number of leads. So that is the number of people who actively make inquiries times your lead conversion rate. And that lead conversion rate is how successful you are at getting people who contact your firm to become prospects. Okay, so hopefully so far nice and straightforward. If you have any questions, do feel free to ask or pop them into the chat box as well if you like. So what we want to start out at is looking at what is the minimum sales volume that you need to have per month. And this very much depends on the size of your firm, number of employees you have, your fixed outgoings, rent, mortgage, all of the utilities that you have. But let's say for this example, I'm going to choose a proposal conversion rate at 62.5%. And if you're wondering why 62.5%, 73.6% of statistics are made up on the spot. And I will show you why I've come to the 62.5% in a moment. Let's say we have a lead conversion rate at 40%. That means 40% of the people that contact you end up getting a proposal. Now that might seem incredibly high for a lot of you, but if you implement the lean sales processes, then that can become a realistic figure, high end, but realistic. Let's say our desired monthly income is $30,000 and our average project value is $6,000, so that means we have to have 5 projects. As I say, this is a simplified version. So 5 projects, well, how many proposals does that mean we have to do each month? Hence the 62.5% proposal conversion rate. To make the math nice and simple and nice round numbers, 8 proposals. Okay, so that's 1 every 2 weeks. Sorry, 2 every 1 week. 2 proposals a week, which is going to keep you on your toes. It's going to keep you pretty busy. So 8 proposals, if we get 40% of our leads to become proposals, means we have to have 20 leads per month. So that's about 1 per working day. Now, this gives us a real indication of whether or not we're getting in the right kind of volume of business, the right kind of volume from our marketing. So if our minimum is 20 leads a month, what's our maximum? It's much more difficult to quantify in some ways. A number of firms will say to me, but there is no maximum. We want to have as many leads as possible. But the more leads you have in your pipeline, the more diluted your sales efforts are. You're spending a lot of time working on less well-qualified leads, as well as the well-qualified leads. So you should set a maximum so that you are constraining the amount of sales time you have and forcing yourself to work with the best leads, not just the largest number of leads. I like to look at this and base it on the amount of time you currently have available. And we'll talk about how that can change in a moment. So if 8 proposals are manageable, then 25% increase to 10 proposals is going to be harder work. That's a little bit more work each week, purely on putting proposals together. But if you get a 50% increase, now that's an additional proposal per week. That is probably going to become impossible. Probably, not necessarily. Depends on the processes and systems you have around the proposal preparation and whether you as the principal are heavily involved in that or whether you've been able to delegate that down to other team members. But in this case, well, let's say that 12 becomes impossible. So you need to have more than 8 but less than 12. 25 leads a month, so that's just over 1 per day. You would be in the position where it's hard to produce that number of proposals. So let's start deferring leads that come in into the business development cycle. And that is where you keep them on the back burner. You're communicating with them regularly, but you're not trying to sell to them at this point. Now, one thing to bear in mind when we're here is that a number of the leads that will come in may be exceptional. And if you have a really good lead, high value, well qualified prospect, Don't put it on the back burner. Substitute out one of the weaker leads that you currently have for a high quality lead and move that other one onto a back burner. That's the way to make sure that you are bringing the best potential clients into your sales funnel, and you're not busting a gut by trying to add that extra high quality lead in with some of the lower quality leads, pushing you more towards the 12 proposals per month approach. Okay, hopefully that all makes sense to you. Again, if you have any questions on this, do feel free to either wait for the Q&A afterwards, or drop them into the questions or the chat box. So now the next step is, how do we maintain a full pipeline? What do we need to do to maintain that full pipeline? So when a project is either won or lost, how many new leads do we need to bring in to keep the pipeline full? And the math behind this is that each proposal decision, whether it's a win or loss, it's the reciprocal of the proposal conversion rate times the leads conversion rate. So example here, 1 divided by 62.5% by 40%, which is 4 new leads. So every time a decision is made, you need to bring 4 leads from your business development process into your sales pipeline to start actively selling to them. One of the things that this really helps with, it helps you determine just how much time you should be spending on selling, how your team's resources should be utilized with bringing the right number, the right volume of sales into the firm. But one of the most important aspects is it helps you determine your marketing spend. If your sales pipeline is at capacity, why are you continuing to spend more and more and putting more and more leads into the business development funnel? Certainly you want to have some within the business development funnel, but it may be that you're spending too much. And likewise, if you find that you are running short and you're not operating close to your maximum, then maybe you need to increase your marketing. Maybe you need to put in more time on the marketing, especially if you operate with referral marketing, network referral marketing. Maybe you need to spend more time and more effort on your inbound marketing efforts. There need to be more blog posts. They need to be promoted more effectively through social media. And it could be that you need to have a sudden hit, in which case you maybe need to start spending more on advertising, your pay-per-click campaigns. It helps you tweak this very, very quickly. In the old days, when it was newspaper advertising, magazine advertising, the lead time to change your marketing spend was quite long. These days, you literally just go into your AdWords dashboard and change. Boom, I want to spend more per day. I want to change the number of locations that I'm working on. It's very easy to up that marketing spend very quickly to bring in more leads into your sales pipeline. But you don't know how many you need unless you've gone through this exercise. And this is part of determining the lean sales process, making sure that you are optimized for not too many and not too few. Okay. Hope that is all making sense to you. I threatened in one of my emails to introduce you to the Alessandra hypothesis, and here we come. It's not quite as horrendous as it sounds. It's research that's gone into what is the impact of doing more research prior to sales versus less research prior to sales, and show you two examples within the hypothesis: sales type 1 and we have sales type 2. As you can see, one of them has relatively little in the way of research going on at an early stage. The other has a significant amount. There's roughly the same amount of time spent within presentations and meetings. And finally, the last part, closing the sale. Type 1 has significant amounts of time spent on closing the sale. Type 2, much, much less. Type 1 is, if you like, the old school sales approach when it was a numbers game. You don't do masses of research. You do just enough to put together really a generic presentation. And the danger with that is that you have a very long, drawn-out sales negotiation process where you're having to make changes. You're now asking questions at the closing stage. You're dealing with the typical sales objections, and it's an area where I think most of us really don't like to be. We don't like to be dealing with clients who are asking awkward questions. Much better that they're really happy with the presentations that we put together and that they want to buy from us rather than us having to sell to them. Within Type 2, you're really working on building that relationship as early as possible by asking questions, working very collaboratively with the client. And one of the things that I note with many firms is that when it comes to selling, the buck stops with the owner of the firm. They take responsibility for that most of the time. That means in a Type 1 sales environment, they're spending an awful lot of time out selling, dealing with client objections. In Type 2, the research side, the building a relationship, the questions, doesn't have to be done by the principal. That can be done by the team, freeing up yet more of your time for doing other things, and the final closing of the sale is relatively quick because your team have put together a really well-tailored presentation. They understand the client, they understand the client's industry, but more importantly, especially within the design world, they understand the client's customers. So they've gone through and they have found out what the client's customer avatar is, and they are preparing materials that are designed to convert for their client, not just purely designed to convert to make a sale. So all of these little steps that you can change within your sales process bring you towards lean, make you more effective, and as the owner of a design firm, they enable you to save your time quite significantly on selling. Part of the process, part of that research, is really getting to understand how your buyer thinks, what they're looking for. So early questions to be asking are things like, what does success or what does failure look like in regards to this project? Now, there are different ways of approaching this, and almost every client will have slightly different answers, but usually it's revenue driven. So does this project bring in the revenue that we're anticipating? There's cost. We want to make sure that it doesn't go over budget. There is timescale. Can this be done in the timescale that we are looking at? We then build in other things as well. There may well be aesthetics in there. Some clients love to win awards. Those kinds of things are very important. So get in there and start asking questions early on about what does success and failure look like. And I want you to think about the buyer's emotional experience. And that might sound a bit sort of airy-fairy, but one of the things to bear in mind is that you are selling what you sell on a regular basis. If you sell websites, you're in the thick of it. You're selling them day in, day out, week in, week out. Your clients are maybe buying them once every 3 or 4 years. They have certain reservations. They are going through an emotional experience in making these decisions. If you're a branding agency, how often do companies rebrand? 7 years? 10 years? What's the impact of that rebrand? How massive, potentially, is the impact on not just an individual, but on the company and the employees overall? If a rebrand is to help them expand geographically, maybe into a new country, that's an enormous investment. So you have to understand where the buyer is coming from in terms of their reservations about what you're doing and how you can reassure them. will be ups and downs for every buyer in this process. If you're working within a big organization, then the decision that is being made could make or break somebody's career. To you, it's just another sale. Yeah, well, we've got to go sell another website next week, tomorrow, later this afternoon. To them, making this decision, VP of marketing, could be their career and make or break. And likewise for business owners, the business opportunities that you help them bring to fruition are enormous. So there will be emotional ups and downs. There will be the good and bad. So help your buyers through that experience. Become a coach for them. And remember, people like to buy, they don't like to be sold to. And we've all probably been into the electronic stores where the salespeople are on commission and it's push, 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 push. You don't like that. It's no wonder people are moving towards buying electronic items online significantly more. So make sure that you are making the buyer's experience as pleasant, as well informed and effective as possible, rather than selling to them. It's important to try and synchronize your sales process to this prospect's buying systems, their buying processes. And one thing that I see is that the bigger the firms are, the bigger the organizations that are doing the buying, the better set up those sales process or those buying processes are. So ask up front, what are those? And make sure that you can change your selling process to fit in with that buying process. How can we make it easy for them to say yes at every step? So understanding their selling process, at which points do they make decisions about moving on? How can we make that as easy as possible at every step? Make sure documentation is in their desired format. This can be a real pain. I've recently worked with a client that was selling to a health authority, and their buying automatically went through a purchasing department, and the purchasing department required a lot of analytical data in certain formats. And I can tell you now, it was a complete pain to do that, but it was well worth it because it was a $300,000 contract. Make it easy for them to say yes. Don't disqualify yourself by saying, oh, that's okay. They can sort that out themselves. They can work the answer out. Help them. Now, implementing lean sales. There's a number of steps to go through, and I've broken it down into 4 background steps that you should do, and then 4 analytical steps, and then 3 steps to actually put it in action and get it going. So background prep, 4 steps. First one is asking yourself what actually brings value in your sales process. First thing to do is sit down with your team and dissect what you do. Look at everything you do along the way. Right from when you start with gathering a lead, do you have a web form? Is that web form asking for a lot of information? Is it adding any value to gather that information at that particular point in time? Yes, great, stick with it. Maybe amend it. No, then make a change. Look at the proposals, and I'm going to pick on web developers here in particular. When you look at your proposals, how much technical gobbledygook are you putting into your proposal? Does it really matter to the VP of marketing whether the site is written in Python? Probably not. If you're dealing with somebody who is technical, then yes, it might. So ask yourself those kinds of questions. How much technical information needs to be there? How much are you talking about me, us? Is your proposal all about, aren't we wonderful? Look at the awards we've won. Isn't this fantastic? As opposed to talking about your client, what your client wants. Are you adding value in the process by talking about yourself? Or are you adding value by talking about the client's journey, the client's expectations, the client's customers, and how you can satisfy those customers' needs? Or are you talking about the awards you won last year? Or even worse, the awards you won 12 years ago? And I shudder when I see that in proposals. If you won them 12 years ago, what's happened in the 12 in the intervening 12 years. It's a bit scary. So look at what you do, look at what brings value. Do that internally first, and then go and ask some recent clients. And as importantly, ask some people that didn't become clients. Interview them if you can. Phone interviews, I find, are relatively impersonal. Much better if you can invite them out for coffee or lunch or dinner. And remember, there is no such thing as a free lunch. You are getting information from them. Be specific about what the agenda is. And one thing I would always recommend is take notes. Because if they say something fantastic about your firm, you want to capture that and say, hey, can I use that as a testimonial? Can you put that as a recommendation on LinkedIn for us? Double whammy. Not only are you gathering information about your sales process, what worked, what didn't, but maybe along the way you're getting some great testimonials too. And if you're really cheeky, and I mean really cheeky, you can always ask for referrals at the end of it. What doesn't add value is waste. So when you've gone through that first part of the process, which really is looking at what brings value, the things that don't bring value must therefore be waste. So identify them in your processes and look at how you can eliminate them or modify them so that they start to add value. So as I said, I said early on, it's a time, summer can be a time for a little bit of introspection in the way in which you run your business. This is certainly quite introspective work that I'm asking you to think about. Next thing is look at the teamwork, look at sort of cross-functionality between those that are maybe doing the work in your firm versus those that are pulling the proposals together versus those who are presenting those proposals. How can you get everybody working together? Maybe get the technical team to review the proposal. If you ask your front-end developers to go through your proposals, what kind of comments, what kind of feedback are they going to give? Look at the difference between what's coming into your sales funnel, the quality of leads, and what you actually need for qualified leads versus what your marketing is bringing in. And an example here would be, as firms grow, they change the nature of who they work with. And I work with a firm that has significantly moved up market. The nature and the size of their projects has increased quite significantly over the last year. They had received a lot of business through their business networking groups historically, and this was drying up. Why? Because there was a lack of education on the firm side to their business network referral partners about how the business had changed. So whilst they were still getting referrals, they weren't qualified referrals. They were too small. Some education brought that mismatch out, and they were able to get that synchronized. Look at how you can work with your clients. So it's rather than it being you versus the prospect, which is kind of like the old school type 1 sales, look at how you can build ongoing relationships with them. Make it a team effort. And lastly, this isn't a one-off process. You don't do this once. You keep on doing this again and again. So maybe in 3 months' time, you go back and you ask your new clients what brings value. You ask new team members what in what we've done actually adds value. Look at what you've done over the last 3 months. Compare it with what you had done in the previous 3. Make these continuous changes. So that's some background prep. Now some analytical stuff, and this is to some extent sort of diving deep into your sales data. You may not have this sales data available. If not, metaphorically speaking, I will come and smack you on the backside of the head with a bit of 4x2, because you should have this information to hand. If you haven't, then you need to start gathering it. Okay, so step number 1. How long is your sales cycle? How long does it take from when that phone rings or that inquiry email comes in or that inquiry form comes in to signing the contract? You need to know how long that is, because we want to reduce that. We want to reduce that time period, whatever it is. Next thing we need to know is why do we lose people along the way. And this is not people that have made a decision or gone to somebody else. What causes leads or prospects to simply evaporate? And I think we've all probably seen this. You send out a proposal, you go to a presentation, you have what you feel is a very positive meeting, and at the end of it, the client says, absolutely great, we'll get back to you next week. Next week comes and goes, next month comes and goes, and there's no answer. What's happened? Were they tire kickers? Have they gone to somebody else? You just don't know. So you need to understand why people are falling out, because this helps you qualify more effectively. So we're not looking here at those that go to your competitors. They're ones that literally just disappear with no decision being made. If you can identify the top 3 or 5, even 4 reasons why that happens, and feed that back into your qualification process. Normally, it's money. And what tends to happen is that a client is ambitious in terms of what they want from a project, but they just do not know how much that is going to cost. And when the proposal goes in, they tend to look at the price and go, wow, whew, 60,000 for that. Yeah, I think we made a mistake on this one. And they disappear. So talking about money up front, build that in as a value driver in your sales process, can help you save a lot of time. It can help reset your leads' expectations as to what something is going to cost, and therefore maybe reevaluate the projects, reevaluate the priorities they have within those projects to make them much more workable. So again, you're giving your client feedback, you're coaching them, and you're providing consulting to your clients, or to your potential clients, I should say, as a way of minimizing that attrition. As I said, I've kind of jumped the gun there, but yeah, compare the attrition causes to the way in which you're qualifying your leads. Lead speed. When you're looking at your overall length of the sales cycle, that's very useful, but it's also great to be able to break that down into the specific components within the sales cycle. How long does it take from a lead to become a prospect to become a client? Understanding that is really important, because what we want to do is at each point we want to find ways of speeding up those individual steps within your processes to reduce the overall time. But it helps significantly if you know at each step what it is that's taking time. And lastly, look at your static leads. And these are the ones that have gone nowhere. They haven't dropped out, but they haven't made decisions. How long is a lead a static lead? Well, some of that depends on the lead of your sales cycle, and some of it depends on the length of the steps within each part of the sales cycle. But if somebody is a static lead, they haven't made a decision 1 month, 2 months, 3 months or more after the proposal stage, you have to characterize those as time wasters. If that's the case, then what can you do to weed those individuals out at an earlier stage as part of your qualification process? Or, and this is sometimes a more difficult thing, ask yourself, what value did we fail to add that made them sit on the fence? Why are we not able to persuade them that this is a good thing to come and work with us? Either of those will save you a significant amount of time. If you want to weed them out, brilliant. If you want to persuade them, then you need to be adding more value at the proposal stage. So things to think about there. So we've done the sort of 4 background, 4 analytical, and now 3 practical steps that you can take into your next sales meeting. And this is really selling in action. 3 steps. First thing is, when you get into your first sales meeting, is you explain what your onboarding process is. This is how the sales is going to run. This is what we need from you. This is our philosophy is. Well, our philosophy is we actually want to help you as a buyer make a good decision for you, not necessarily for us, in as short a time as possible. Why? Well, the sooner you come to a decision, be it for us or against us, the sooner we can move on to the next prospect as part of our selling process. Nothing personal. We would love you to come and work for us, but if you're going to make a decision not to work with us, we want you to make it as quickly as possible to save us time and save you time. It's a very unusual approach, and often it breaks the status quo between firms. If you go in and say, we want you to make a good decision, we'd like it to be us, but at the end of the day, we just want to help you make a good decision for you. You're adding value. So even if they don't work with you for whatever reason, they may well recommend you. Sounds strange, but it does happen. So you're really here, you want to work as a coach. You want to coach them through the buying process. And again, it comes back to the fact that you are selling web design, branding, graphic design, day in, day out. They're buying it infrequently. So you have a lot more knowledge about the buying process for design than they do. So help them through that. And one of the ways you can do that is to help them build a buying plan. And a buying plan it's not the same as a buying process that they might already have. This is something that the two of you work on. And really it's taking their buying process, assuming they have one, and if they don't, helping them determine what one should look like in outline. This is not a 20-page document. This is a back of an envelope kind of thing. And work out during that buying process who needs to be at presentations, who needs to be gathering information, who should we be talking to about your customer avatars. In terms of decision making, is it going to be the CEO who signs off? Is it the CMO? Is it the CFO who needs to sign off? Do you need to have more than one person signing off? In which case, making sure that you have the right decision makers at the right point involved in the process. So there's a very simplified buying plan set out, and then you can start putting dates against it. Now you have SMART goals, almost. Scary prospect. You've now introduced goal setting into both your selling process and the buyer's buying process. Really, really helps to build up a lot of trust. So those are the steps that you can use. So as I say, we've got 4 background, 4 analytical, and the 3 steps to take into your next sales meeting. I hope that has been useful. For some of you, it may sound a bit scary, and it may even sound as though it's something that you feel uncomfortable of maybe implementing on your own, and that's where I can help. I want to briefly talk to you about business coaching services that I offer. I work with the owners of design firms primarily, helping them to define and realize what it is they want out of their businesses, set up strategic plans, and help implement those plans. So to help you achieve the potential that you have within your firm. As a coach, I can also act as a guide in much the same way that I was talking about you act as a guide for your prospects, because they are not doing this frequently, but you are. I can act as a guide for you in helping grow your firm, because this is something that I do day in, day out. Because of that, I have significant resources available and can certainly point people in the direction of reliable resources rather than just resources. One thing that when you work in your own business is that you provide accountability for your employees. They answer to you, but you don't answer to anyone else. And that lack of accountability, I find with a number of my clients, gets rectified working with me. We set goals. I keep you accountable. I'm not always very nice about it, but I endeavor to be. And lastly, as a business owner, often you don't have anyone to turn to who understands what you're going through. You don't necessarily want to talk to your competitors about issues you may be having or ideas that you have. When you talk to your family about them, they may go, "Oh dear, that sounds a bit risky." That's normally your mum. or you talk to your friends about it who don't really understand your business, and they're like, yeah, that's awesome, what a great idea, and actually it really sucks. So a coach can act as an impartial sounding board, telling you when you're making good decisions, advising you if you're not, and looking at ways of mitigating the poor decisions, and really making sure that you go ahead with the good ones. Impartial, no vested interest there one way or the other. Now, working with me, basic fee is 1,250, that's Canadian per month. So I'm sorry anyone from the UK who's on this, I'm afraid that's just gone up in value significantly over the last couple of weeks for you. And if you're in the US, you're kind of like laughing compared to everyone else. However, I'm very cognizant of the fact that you've invested time with me today, and I want to recognize that. So for the next 3 months, anyone who is interested in coming on board and working with me, instead of 1,250, it's 1,000 per month for the next 3 months. There is no minimum number of months. So if at the end of 3 months you feel you have got value and you want to move on, absolutely no problem. If that after 1 month you decide that we've resolved the number of issues that you have, absolutely fine. I have clients that have worked with me from 6 weeks, shortest, and we resolved the issues that he had very, very quickly because they were purely contractual, right the way through to clients that have worked for me for 5 years, nearly 6 years now. That's one of my multi-award winning design clients. Now, this offer is going to be held open until 12 o'clock on Monday morning. So you can think about it over the weekend. All you need to do is just notify me that you have an interest in this. There's no need to be signing up with contracts before 12 o'clock on Monday, because what I would like to do is arrange a strategy consultation where we can talk about your business, what you want to do with it, and ensure that we are a good fit. We will go through that qualification process to see whether you fit with me and I fit with you. So